Hello and congratulations on getting access to this video course on how to create engaging presentations. So this video course is all about Prezi, which is the software platform that enables you to create engaging presentations. Now, why did we choose this over PowerPoint? Well, I'll talk about that in just a minute. As you know, creating engaging videos and presentations is very much important in this day and age, especially when many different social media platforms or other platforms look for high engagement, right? In order to sell something, you need to have an engaging presentation, at least to gain people's trust and get them to interact with you. Now, PowerPoint has come a long way, as well as Prezi. But when you see Prezi Next, which is the latest version of Prezi, you will be wowed. So with that said, let me jump right into this introduction. So what I want to do is give you a quick overview of what's inside this video course. This is the introduction. Video number 2 is Prezi Made Easy, and I'll talk about the differences between Prezi Next and Prezi Classic, which is the older version of Prezi, and how they are different. And then we'll talk about how to start your own Prezi presentation in video number 3. Video number 4 is the Prezi site overview, and we'll talk about how to dive in, how to get started, and all of that. Video number 5, we'll talk about how to start a new Prezi, and we'll show you a demo and everything like that. And video number 6, we'll talk about editing and customization. How do you make it fit your needs, essentially? And video number 7, we'll talk about shortcut keys. So as you begin to learn Prezi, having access to the shortcut keys definitely can help speed up the whole process. Video number 8, we'll talk about adding voiceovers and background sound. So for those of you who want to take Prezi and essentially turn it into a video, this video will be for you. So we're obviously going to be using a different software to do that. But that said, I'm going to show you how to do that. And of course, last but not least, video number 9, we're going to show you how to collaborate via Prezi. So how do you collaborate via your team, either in the sense of putting it all together or maybe collaboration in terms of learning. So we'll show you more in just a second. So first things first, why Prezi versus PowerPoint? Obviously I could have made this video course about PowerPoint, and PowerPoint has come a long way and they have evolved over the years. But the reason why we chose Prezi over PowerPoint is simply because Prezi really allows you to really engage with your viewers. And you'll see in just a minute how engaging it really is. Now, you'll notice in just a minute with Prezi Next, they kind of have moved more towards the powerful functions of PowerPoint. So essentially what they've done is they've taken the most powerful features of PowerPoint and taken the most powerful features of Prezi and combined them together to make an amazing tool. All right. So with that said, let's jump into video number 2. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 2, and we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to talk about Prezi Next, which is the latest version of Prezi versus Prezi Classic. So as of now of making this video course, you can either make your Prezi Classic videos or Prezi Next. Now keep in mind that if you make any Prezi presentations in Prezi Classic, you cannot really import them into Prezi Next. And you'll get an idea of what the major differences are. That way you can decide on which one to go. Now, Prezi Next new features. So Prezi Next is, like I said, the latest version of Prezi. And the main differences, one of the main differences is that Prezi Next runs on HTML5. So as you will notice, a good amount of presentations, video players, they're all moving towards HTML5. That's essentially the future. While on the other hand, Classic Prezi runs on Adobe Flash. So as you know, certain browsers as of now, they have literally gotten rid of playing Adobe Flash because many people consider it to be unsafe and prone to performance issues. So that's the big thing. And other than that, frames, for example, which will make more sense when I dive in, are hidden until you're ready to show them. You can use fade in or fade out animations, which allow you to manually hide content until you're actually ready to show them. So the nice thing about Prezi is a lot of items you cannot see until you zoom in. So kind of how you saw how I zoomed in. So you saw the 9 different video topics and then I was able to zoom in. So that's the nice thing about Prezi compared to PowerPoint is with PowerPoint, you can't really do that, but with Prezi you can. And you can do so much more, which I'll show you in just a minute. And also with Prezi Next, you can click and zoom on any frame during the presentation. And you are not stuck on just like following the slide's path sequence number. So with the previous classic Prezi, you can only go in order. You have to go like in order of creating it. But with Prezi Next, which I'll show you in just a minute, for example, with the 9 videos, I could either go in order or I could just pick and choose the bubbles, right? So that's the main difference is you're not stuck on having to follow step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to create a more engaging presentation. So that way, let's say, for example, you're doing a webinar or you're doing a presentation or a sales presentation, you can pick and choose which circles that you want to go into. And you can skip some, you don't even have to go in order. So that's what makes it more interactive. Does that make sense? So it provides analytics also by showing how many people viewed your presentation, who they shared it with, and which parts interest them most. That's amazing because you were not able to do that in the original classic Prezi. Plus, as you will see in a minute, there is a cleaner, slicker look with subtopics and pages. As far as setting things up, the structure is just a lot more cleaner. Everything is structured properly, and it's just a lot easier as far as usability goes. I remember back in the day with classic Prezi, setting things up was actually very complicated. Once you set things up, it looked really nice, but to get to that point, you literally would have to sit there for hours setting up a Prezi. So nowadays, setting up a Prezi with Prezi Next is just so much easier. With that said, let's move on to video number 3. Okay, so welcome back. This is video number 3, and we're going to talk about how to start your Prezi presentation. And I'm really going to talk specifically about Prezi Next structure, how things are structured in this Prezi Next new type of update, and that way you have a better idea of how things are broken down. So I don't want to jump in straight ahead right now. I want to talk about the structure, and that way you can dive straight in the next video after this. All right, so let's jump in and just take a look at a structure. Okay, so let's jump right in. So the first thing you're going to see is, in this example, I just chose a random template, but typically with Prezi Next, you're going to see these little bubbles, all right? So these little bubbles are basically topics. So the nice thing about Prezi Next is I could switch between this one, and this one. I don't have to go in any order, which is nice. But these are basically topics, all right? So when you click on one of these, we'll click this one here, you'll see these here. And what these are subtopics. So this is a subtopic. So we went from topic as a very general to subtopics. So this right here is a subtopic. So you can add more elements to the subtopic. So if you click subtopic, and there's 2 topic types. There's planet and stacks. Planet basically allows you to add more circles. So we'll do that now. You can see that this was the 4th circle. So we had 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And of course, you can always stretch it out if you would like. But it always looks professional no matter what. So the thing with classic Prezi was you can go all out, and if you weren't really very creative, it would be hard to make it really look nice and structured. So now you don't have to worry about that. Everything is now very much structured. Now, if I clicked on that little circle that I clicked on just now, and I clicked on subtopic here, and let's add something here. So you can, as you can see, you can add in more subtopics and more subtopics and more. Now we could add Slack topic types like this. And with Slack topic types, as you can see, now it looks like a PowerPoint presentation, but now you can add pages underneath. So think about pages kind of like a PowerPoint slide. So all they are is really just different elements, different ways to kind of showcase what you're trying to teach, what you're trying to present. So just to recap, we've got topics at the top, subtopics below that, and you can do as many subtopics, and then you can also do pages as well. So as long as you understand kind of how that is structured, then getting creative in making your presentation look really nice is actually a breeze. So I just wanted to cover that initially before we actually jumped right in, so now you understand how things are set up. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 4, and let's talk about the Prezi site overview. And I want to give you a better overview of, before we jump in, the templates, how to choose them. We'll talk about Prezi Next, the app, and how basically everything works before we begin to edit and customize a Prezi. Okay, so in this particular video, I'm not really going to show you how to build a Prezi from scratch, but I want to give you kind of an overarching overview of the Prezi dashboard, the app, and all that's available to you so that you know what the differences are between each. And that way you can make a better decision on what route you want to go. Now, if you are just getting started, I'm not really aware of whether you're able to see Prezi Classic or not. That may be something that is just available to older customers. But if you do see Prezi Classic, I highly recommend that you just stick with Prezi Next. And the reason being is because Prezi Next is just so much easier. It's structured, everything looks nice, and it just gives you more flexibility without all the tedious work. Prezi Classic, we just happen to be very well versed with it, so we know a little bit more about it. But after we tested a Prezi Next recently, which is why if we go to Prezi Classic, you'll see that we have about 21 presentations. So we've really been using Prezi Classic, but Prezi Next, on the other hand, we've only tested a few. But from what we've tested, we found that a lot of the Prezis, you'll notice they have the circles. Of course, you can change the circles to something else, but they look very similar. The layout is very similar. They look sleeker, more beautiful, more engaging, and all of that. So just want to say, if you are getting started, just start out with Prezi Next. Don't go with anything else. So the nice thing about Prezi Next also is you are able to see the analytics. You can actually see the stats, and that's something that you were never really able to do with the older version. Now there is a Prezi Next app. So as you can see here, I'm using a Windows computer and I have the Prezi Windows app here. The main difference is just, I'm editing it on my Windows computer versus editing with the browser. Now, you will also notice that they also have mobile apps too. So it really depends on your preference. Sometimes some people, being who they are, may want to edit on Windows, may want to edit on the browser, or even may want to edit on the mobile app. So really what it comes down to is it's not that something is better than the other. It's just a matter of preference. Which route do you want to take? All right. Okay, so welcome back. This is video number 5, and we're going to dive straight in and talk about how to start a new Prezi. basically building a Prezi from scratch. You can either build it from complete scratch, or you can actually just use a template, which is actually a simpler route. I highly recommend that route. And for those of you who are super creative, and I highly recommend if you really have started out using templates and you've gotten really well versed with the templates, then and only then do I actually recommend that you actually start from a clean slate. But if you've never used Prezi Next before, I highly recommend that you start with the template first, get used to the actual animations, the options, and all of that first before you move to a little bit more advanced. All right, so let's start with some of the basics and move from there, right? So let's go ahead and click New Presentation, and let me go ahead and walk you around. Now you will notice that it does take a little bit of time to load, so depending on your internet connection. And there you go. So as you can see here, we got many different categories. We got sales and development, we have marketing, education, HR and training, and general. And you've got a huge amount of templates, really good looking templates. In my mind, compared to the Prezi Classic, this is just way better. Of course, Prezi compared to PowerPoint, the original Classic version, I thought was better than PowerPoint, regardless. So these are just a certain amount of templates you have access to, and as you can see, you have a huge amount of templates. All right, so let's just go ahead and pick one of these, and let's just go ahead and run with it. So let's go ahead and let's just choose this one here. All right. So click on it. It's loading the template preview, so we have a better idea of what it looks like. So the nice thing about Prezi is, you can change the background. You could change it to an image of your company, of your building, or you can change it to something else. It really is up to you. So that's where the customization process comes in. So the nice thing about this is you can take a look at it and see, is this really right for me? Do I really want to use this? And let's just go ahead and click Use this template. Okay, so that took a little bit more time, but I went ahead and paused that so that we could zoom forward. But up at the top, you can, of course, change the title of your Prezi. So we could call this Sales Pitch 1. You've got File, you can do New Prezi, you can save, you can show info about the Prezi. You can show your Prezis. So obviously this would go out and go to your other Prezis, which is not what we really want to do. You can insert topics, you can insert texts, charts, images, videos, even to make it even more engaging, shapes, arrows, lines, icons, and symbols, comments, and animation. So there are a lot of varieties of different elements that you can insert. You can hide the background. You could hide comments or show animations. You can go into presentation mode, viewer, presentation viewer. You can preview it or see what it looks like live. So you're really not going to need these until you're actually done with everything else. Now, like I said earlier, we have topics, and then of course, when you drill down further, you will be able to see subtopics, like so. And then you're able to drill further, which then will allow you to see pages. So before, like I showed you, there were pages and then subtopics. And then of course, you can zoom back out and you'll see animations. Now, remember how I said previously that what the Prezi Next does is it takes the most powerful features or the strengths of the classic Prezi and Microsoft PowerPoint, and it brings it all together, and that's what we have here. So with animations, I could actually animate it so that I don't want certain elements to actually appear until I actually begin to click. And that's the beauty of animations, just like a PowerPoint concept. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 6, and we're going to dive straight in and continue where we left off in the previous video, where I showed you kind of an overview of how to start out your Prezi Next presentation. And now we're going to dive in and talk about editing and customization. And we'll talk about customizing your Prezi, your images, your colors, and your animations, and everything else. Okay, so now that you understand how things are structured when it comes to editing, customization, grabbing, inserting images, grabbing images out, inserting your own images, all of that, it's actually a very easy process once you're utilizing a template. But like I said, once you master the template process, you can actually move straight into beginning to start with a clean slate and do your own thing, kind of thing. So let's just go ahead and customize from the top down to the bottom. So now we're taking a look at the overview, which is the overarching view of everything. And before I actually even move into anything, let's start kind of like a cumulative order so that it's better understandable. Let's say, for example, that we don't want certain elements right here to appear until we move forward. So we can actually, let's click on the sales pitch, for example, and maybe the background. So we'll select that, and then of course you can move that back over here, and we'll click animations, and then I'm going to click plus. So obviously you want to select the element that you want to animate, click plus, and then choose what you want. So we could do fade in, fade out. So fade in would usually naturally be okay when you actually come in, and maybe later on it'll be fade out. We could also fade in here. We could also initially zoom in as well. So you can zoom in, you can add a zoom in area and all of that. So animations is just a really cool way to make things appear, or when they're not appear as you begin the presentation. So maybe you could start out with a kind of just a view of the circles, the elements, the major topics, and then of course the background. And then you begin the presentation and it's like, wow, that looks really cool, kind of thing. So think about it from your viewer's standpoint. What would make them think, wow, that's really interesting, or wow, I didn't expect that to even happen, kind of thing. So that's that, and that's basically how animations work. You can also specify when the animations happen. So you can have it at the beginning of the presentation, after the about, which is these topics here. So every one of these circles are topics, remember. So you can have the animations appear after every single one of these topics here. So you can actually specify it in more detail. But I just wanted to show you some brief kind of overview of the animations elements themselves. So now I'm going to select the about topic, and to customize it, very, very easy to do. So this obviously would be good for a sales pitch or an about presentation. And all you have to do to customize it is select it, double click it, and highlight it. And then of course your office or your name or whatever. So office location, you can add the text here. Or if you want to insert another element, you can do that as well. So you can insert up here, subtopic text, charts, images, videos, shapes, arrows, lines, icons, and symbols. So I could also insert an icon. You can have light icons and dark icon. So if I select light icons, you can see they have a light background on the back. So we could select one of these, and we can simply drag and drop it over here, like so. Or if we go back here and we do dark prezis, it's just a dark background here. So that's really the main difference between light prezis and dark prezi icons. So you can also insert other elements as well if you would like to. You can also edit out the images. So if you click on the image here, we could click replace image. So we could go and look for an image, and we could select an image like this, and it'll just upload it really fast, as you can see here, within a few seconds, or less than 0.1 seconds actually. So we could do that, and we could go back just to kind of see what it looks like. So we can zoom in like that and go like that. And so you can see how easy it is. You select the image, you click replace image, find the image that you want like that, and replace it. So what you see is kind of what you get. What you see, and then you can replace, of course, the color. So you could select this purple item and then select a different color like that. So, you know, if you've used PowerPoint, you use Microsoft Word, the dashboard up here is fairly easy to use. But you'll notice that it changes depending on the element that you choose. So if you choose an image, it'll tell you replace an image. If you choose, you know, a color block, it'll tell you there's different options for the color block. If you choose text, on the other hand, you have the opportunity to, you know, change the size, increase it, change the font type. You can bold, italicize, background color, the color, alignment. So really basic stuff when it comes to text, stuff that you would see in pretty much most word processing systems. Now, let's say you want to add something and you don't like where this image is. So you can actually select the image and move it around. And you can move the text around as well. You don't have to necessarily stick with the exact position of everything, you know, how things are set up in terms of the template. So if you don't like something, you know, feel free to move it around. You can actually do that very, very easily with Prezi. Now, let's say we want to zoom in. We can actually zoom in, but we can also zoom out as well. So let's go back out and go back to overview. And you might be wondering, can you actually, move things around? You know, let's say I don't really want this background here. Let's say I want my own background. Well, you can do that by going back to the overview, clicking on background options, and you can either upload a background image, you can revert to the template background if you make a mistake, you can remove background images like so, or we can revert back to this. So one place that I will tell you to get your images from is bigstockphoto.com. There are a lot of other places that you can go to get images as well. There's pixabay.com. There is also Pexels, PEXELS.com. You can also get really beautiful images there, royalty-free ones. So obviously, if you're doing this for like business related, you're going to want to get a commercial license. So you're going to need to pay for the images that you use. So with that said, that aside, if you click upload background image, let's just choose an image. So let's go and let's see here. Let's maybe choose this one here. So obviously this relates to outsourcing, but you can see these have little circles. And that's actually really convenient because I can actually move these circle topics here. So let's say, for example, I want to move this here and I want to make the circle a little bit bigger so that it fits perfectly on this here. So obviously the finger's pointing here, but I could put it over here. I could, put this over here and make it bigger so it fits the circle perfectly like that. And I could do the same thing over here like so. So as you can see, you can move the circles around. Now you'll notice as I move the circles around, do you see those yellow lines? Well, those yellow lines are pointing to the circles. So depending on the order that you have it in right now is the order that it'll go through if you use the arrow, the right arrow, to move forward. But you can obviously use the mouse to select either or whatever item that you want, and go into any order that you want. But like I said, if you do want to go in order, you can. And you can use the right arrow on your keyboard to essentially go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if I want to move, let's say, for example, 6 to number 2, I could easily do that. And then, of course, it switches. But I wanted to show you how easy it was. See, with the template, you have the opportunity, like you don't have to use the way the things are laid out or anything like that. You can actually tweak it to your own liking, like that. So there you go. So you can see that I tweaked it. I imported a background, and that's what it looks like. Now, within the subtopic itself, you can actually edit just the same way. Select it, double click it to edit the text. And of course, I can add a subtopic. Remember, you have two topic types. You have planets or stacks. Planets basically add the circles around here, so I could add another subtopic and it'll appear here. I can move it anywhere way I want. I'm going to leave it as it is. I can add another subtopic and another one like so. And of course, if I want kind of a PowerPoint slide look, I can choose the stack, as you can see here. So stack is going to look like this, where they zoom all the way further in, and it looks like a PowerPoint slide. And this is actually something that we did for a while with Prezi Classic, but it's not something that you could easily do with Prezi Classic. And that's why I recommend, if you're new to all of this, stick with Prezi Next. All right. So that's pretty much the premise on how to use Prezi. Okay, so welcome to video number 7, and we are gonna go ahead and jump right in and talk about shortcut keys. So shortcut keys are basically keys within Prezi that have been programmed to allow you to speed things up. Now, you don't really want to do this until you get a hang of at least a few templates, but once you actually understand the dashboard and how everything is laid out, then I recommend using shortcut keys. So that way you can just speed things up, and what would normally take you maybe 15 minutes can now literally take you a click of a button. All right, so that's it. Let's jump right in. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. Everybody wants to eventually speed up the process. Nobody that is watching this probably wants to do it the long way. But like I said, if you actually start out working with templates, once you get a hang of it, then I'd highly recommend that you use this. That way you can understand the whole process of how everything works. And that way you're better equipped with knowing when to actually use shortcut keys. Now, you don't have to remember the exact keys. I'm going to show you an article from Prezi where you'll be able to get access to this article and utilize these shortcut keys. You can print it out, have it on your wall, so you can always refer back to it later on. But for now, I just want to show it to you in action. So let's say we want to select everything that is on this page. So let's do that. So if you click Control A, now obviously this is going to be different with Mac computers. It might be Command A, but what I just did was I selected everything, all the topics. So Control A is select all, and that's pretty standard with most word processing or even browser functions, is Control A selects all. By selecting all, that enables you to move things around a little bit better. So instead of moving items like little topics one by one, you can literally select everything and move it around. So you can select and move here and move it here. Now, I could select all, and I can also copy by clicking Control C or Command key and Control V, which will basically copy everything. Now, I don't see where you would actually need to do that unless you had a lot of these items, right? So if we wanted something similar to this, maybe what we wanted to do is select that item. So that's number 5. So let's see here. That's this one here. So that's the timeline. So I could select the timeline. I could do Control C, Control V. And by doing Control V, you saw that now there's a number 7. And it's copied this exact element. So if you like an element and you want to kind of base it upon that very element because you've done everything right, then you can do Control C and Control V. All right. Now, if I want to go further in, let's double click on this, and we like the way this is set up, and maybe we want another element, we could do Control C, Control V. Or maybe we just want to copy and paste this text right here. So you would want to select it like so. And you can see that I've clicked Control C, Control V. I've copied and pasted, and you can see a duplicate. So let's say, for example, we want this one over here. So what you do is you want to select the element. So if you look fairly carefully, my mouse goes over and this item highlights. So I can actually select the item. And let's say I want to select this one, and this one. To do that, I'll need to hold down the Control key. Like that, Control C, Control V. And you can actually duplicate it. And there we go. So now I will say that took a little bit of time to do that, but I can move it over here. I can move this over here like that. All right. So that's Control C, Control V, which are probably the most common shortcut keys that you're actually going to use. Now let's talk about some other shortcut keys. Now I will say, before you use keyboard shortcut keys and you go to Prezi and you search for them, you will notice that some will say this support page is only, so there are some keyboard shortcut keys that are only for Prezi Classic specifically. So you only want to do the ones that are for Prezi Next if you're using Prezi Next, and the ones for Prezi Classic if you're using Prezi Classic. But as you can see here, there are different ones for Windows and Mac, obviously, because there are different keys on the different platforms and different computers. But with Windows, you can see it's Control A. With Mac, it's Control A to select all, Control C. Control X is to cut it. Cut it means that if you cut it, it'll disappear, and then of course you can copy it somewhere else. You can do Alt backspace to delete. You can do Command and to drag things around, and there's other elements here as well to move things around. But for the most part, you're probably going to use these right here, as this is more common. So to get here, obviously, let me give you the URL of the link. If you go to www.prezi.com/business/create-your-prezi, no S, so Prezi/shortcuts. Now, if you want to just go to their database, you can do that and do a search. Just make sure that it says this support page is about Prezi Next, because there was another keyboard shortcut page that was specifically for the Prezi Classic. So I wanted to make mention of that so you don't get confused, you don't learn something that is totally different and not related, and that way you don't lose time. All right, so with that said, let's move on to the next video. Hey, and welcome back. This is video number 8, and this is kind of a bonus video, but for those of you who want to take it a step further, and rather than using Prezi for just something that sits out on the internet or something for a live presentation, for those of you who want to make an actual video, this is for you. All right, so we're going to talk about how to add voiceovers, how to add background sounds, how to essentially make a video. But for those of you who really want to go all out and you're not really looking to make a Prezi to just do a live kind of presentation or just send it to people, you really want to turn this into a video, then you are going to need to have an actual video recording software. So in this case, I am using Camtasia. You can use ScreenFlow for Mac. There are other apps out there as well, but for the most part, I found Camtasia tends to be the best. I've tested Camtasia on the Mac. I really like it. I feel like it has evolved and become better. And maybe it's just a little bit of a preference, but I've used Camtasia for a long time, and that's what I use. Now, here's the thing. Here's a little trick I found. You can use browser, or you can use the Windows or the Mac app. Now, when it came to classic Prezi, I found that utilizing the actual downloadable Windows or Mac app was easier. But that times have changed, and if you click on Prezi, and we go with Prezi next and click on Present, this is what it looks like. So in reality, I found that they've made Prezi Next very, very easy to use, and you can either use a browser version or you can use the Windows or Mac app. So if you're using the classic Prezi, then what I found is it's just easier to use the downloadable Windows or Mac app. If you're using Prezi Next, it doesn't matter. You use browser, or you can also use the downloadable app. Both actually work. So learn from me, because I've recorded many videos, and since then made a lot of Prezis, and the classic Prezis were actually very difficult to record, because a lot of times the reason why was a lot of times the browser app, things would just get in the way and it'd be really hard to record. So I think things have evolved over the years, but that said, you will need to have Camtasia or ScreenFlow. So in order to do this, you will need, obviously, to dish out either $150 to $300 to get access to these softwares. You will also need to have a microphone, either a USB microphone or a more professional microphone. I believe with Mac computers, you can easily use the microphone earbuds. You can use those as well to record a video. But all you do is just go into presentation mode. Now that you have an idea of Prezi Classic versus Prezi Next, all you have to do is click Present. Now you'll notice that if I put my mouse down here, this little thing pops up, and then you're wondering, okay, how do I get rid of this little bar? So to get rid of it, you just put your mouse back up here and you click, so you can see that my mouse is hiding. So before, actually, when I was recording the other videos, my mouse was over here and it was hiding. So that's kind of how to do it. Now with Camtasia, let me go over to Camtasia. You are going to want to use, and I can't really show that now, but you're going to click on record the screen, and you want to use full screen. So you want to show or record the whole screen. And then typically after that, once you have recorded it, you want to get it down to 1280 by 720 editing dimensions, which is HD quality standard. And another thing is, depending on how big your resolution is. If your resolution is a smaller resolution, you might have kind of a little bit of a distorted view, and you might need to kind of play around with it. But when it comes to editing, let's say for this one here, if and when you have elements that are like popping up or in the way, you can use the zoom and pan feature, and you go here and you just move it up like that. So you can move it up. Obviously, it crops out certain elements of the actual video, but then you remove the elements that are popping in and all that. So that's something good to know. I mean, I've made so many Prezi videos over the years that I've realized there are certain elements, certain things that you'll run into along the way that you'll never really know unless you actually do it. So like I said, you got to do it a few times, sometimes a few times, sometimes 10 times, sometimes 20 times, until you perfect your own process. But that's fine. That's part of the game. And at the end of the day, some of your videos that start out may be slow. Now, some people ask, okay, when you make videos, do you just record the voice first and then you kind of show the Prezi in action? Or do you actually walk through while you're showing the Prezi? What I found to answer that, it's different from different people. Some people can do, teach really, really fast and as they do the Prezi, and some people, as they start out, they have to actually read a script and then implement it and have one track as the audio and one track as the Prezi visual. So sometimes you might have to write out the script and read the script and put it down here. And then you have to go back and then record kind of the video of the Prezi and go along with the script. So it really depends on you and how you speak. Some of you might be comfortable with speaking, like me, I can just go straight in and teach. And some of you might not be comfortable and you might have to go with a script. Now, I will say, it definitely takes practice, and even sometimes making videos, it might be the 10th time. But at the end of the day, you have to practice, just like riding a bicycle. Everything takes practice. So hopefully that teaches you a little bit about how to turn your Prezi into a video. So congratulations, you have reached the end of this video course, which is video number 9. And in video number 9, it's going to be a fairly brief video, but I want to show you how to collaborate via Prezi and how to reach out to your team, how to get your team to even work on the Prezi, and how to use Prezi for other things besides of that. And let's go ahead and dive in. So there are different ways to have your team collaborate on a Prezi. You can have them edit the Prezi and build it out together, or you can just have them come in and view the Prezi. So this feature is actually very simple to use. All you have to do is up at the top right hand corner, you're going to see this little people icon. You want to click that, and then you can see that there are currently no collaborators in this Prezi. So what you want to do is click on total collaborators. You'll want to enter their email address. And then before you click on add, there are different options here. You can edit. So in other words, you can give somebody edit rights. You may not want to do that unless that person is somebody you trust. You can have somebody comment, so they can make comments on the Prezi itself. So maybe this is a presentation to a client. You might want to just give them, presentation rights. So essentially, these are rights that you can give. So if you want somebody like your virtual assistant or your somebody employee or somebody on your team, you might want to give them edit rights. And then the can comment and then can present is somebody who might be a client, might be somebody presenting it. Maybe you don't really want them to have those edit rights, because keep in mind, if you do give somebody edit rights, they have the ability to literally ruin your whole Prezi. So just give somebody that you trust those rights. And that's how easy it is to use. And of course, besides collaboration, you have the ability to share, and you can create a link. You can enter the company or the client's name in here, and you click create link. And you can also track Prezi analytics and more. But for the most part, for collaborators, you're going to use the show collaborators button, and that's it. You're good to go.